So, with the success of Shadow Generations, my question is, where do we go from here? It seems the games are doing well, we know the movie's gonna do well. The movie storylines are now sort of influencing what they choose to do for their next game, so we can assume that however Sonic 3 is going to set up Sonic 4 with like an end post-credit scene of maybe Silver setting up the 06 plot to be done in the movie universe, you know? Who knows how that could change and sway the direction of the franchise. Now, I'm not expecting a year of Silver, and for multiple reasons. I think one of the obvious reasons is that he's just not as popular of a character compared to Shadow. Now, that can change if the movies do well and they add Silver in the near future. We could see a resurgence of the character in the games, which I think would be a really great thing. And I think that's been something that has been missing from the games, but with Shadow Generations is coming back, is that playing with other characters that have their own set of unique abilities and powers is a part of what makes Sonic so fun, and having multiple playable characters so fun. And so Silver's a character we've never gotten to play as ever again, and so having a resurgence for the character would mean either he gets his own game or his own DLC like Shadow Generations, or he just gets featured in a game but gets his own story mode. I don't know, but that is an element that I do miss, is having these different play styles between the characters that makes them feel very unique and different. Maybe for a Frontier sequel that would be a good idea, to have a playable Shadow and Silver alongside Sonic solving puzzles and stuff with their own unique abilities. That sounds cool to me, and it seems that in a recent interview they feel the same, that they want to bring back these older early 2000s elements into the franchise in a really polished and careful way. And as long as they're putting in the work and the passion into these games, I'm so down for whatever they want to do in the future. You know, I'm very open. I still don't know if they're doing remakes or not. I don't think anyone really does, but we've all heard the rumors of the Heroes remake and that could potentially be coming very soon, maybe even next year, which I think is crazy. But if they really did have a separate team working on a remake, that would explain a lot. Plus, remaking Heroes and 06, two games that got a lot of focus in Shadow Generations, makes sense that, you know, the levels they've already created a lot of assets for, and for the enemy models as well. Like, they already have everything built for 06. Like, they have a good head start if they want to do remakes for 06 or Heroes or both. I don't really know what their plans are, but when Nakamura says he really wishes he could make a Sonic 06 remake, of course that's going to set the internet ablaze, no pun intended, god damn it, because no one can decide on that game where it stands. Everyone has their own different opinion, and there's people who really like it, there's people who really hate it. You know what I mean? There's people that want it to stay the same. There's some people that want it to completely change and just keep the concept but wipe out everything else, just reimagine it. And I think there's something really refreshing about a reimagining. I think that is what they should go with for multiple reasons. One of the reasons being, like I said before in a previous video talking about remakes, the Resident Evil franchise is a great example, and a lot of other franchises have benefited from remakes. And I think it's a good thing because we don't think about it. We're just living our lives, but like there are younger generations who don't have all those older consoles, and especially because Sega and Sonic Team have been so bad about keeping all the older Sonic games like available like on Steam or the current console platform like PlayStation Store or Microsoft Store. Like they just don't have these games anywhere. And so now that it's been so long, they're so outdated. So it only really makes sense that they're going to remake these older games. It makes sense to me, especially because of the success with Shadow Generations, how they brought back those early 2000s vibes in the story and in the cutscenes and in the dialogue, and it felt so good, it felt so right, and now everyone just wants more of that. And so it just makes sense that like, oh, for those who missed out on that game from 2006, you know, that is incredibly outdated by this point and is extremely rough around the edges and super unpolished, like that would be such an amazing thing to have them come back and make that one of the best games in the series. And I think everyone has the same sentiment that, man, that would be an incredible turnaround for that to just be the stain on the franchise to now being like one of the greatest games in the franchise, or at least like up there to some degree. You know, that would be an incredible thing, and I think they're capable of it if they really put their minds to it, and if they were really just in that creative zone and were really passionate about remaking that game. Like, you have to understand that the development team that worked on 06 is probably mostly gone by this point, and so I don't know how much passion they would actually have to open up that game and try to remake it. But who knows, maybe through the process of making Shadow Generations, they realize they really do like a lot of elements from these games and would like to revisit them, or, you know, like I said, put them on current generation platforms so that they can be remembered for a longer time, you know, extend their lifespan. Because right now, Sonic Heroes is dead. Sonic 06 is dead. The only thing that's keeping 06 alive is Project 06, and again, you know, that's its own fan remake, and some people just want the original experience and don't know where to get that, unless you have the stuff to, you know, do emulation. And honestly, with that being sort of a dying thing and, you know, getting harder and harder to do, it's just not going to happen. No one's going to have a way to play these games, especially the younger generations that are really interested in those older games, you know? So I think this is a really, really good thing if they're planning on doing a whole list of remakes. Like if they have already worked on the Heroes one and they're now jumping and doing an 06 one, I don't really care. Whether they're in order or whatever, like whatever they want to do is totally fine with me. I'm just thinking that, like, seeing where we're at, it just makes me feel like this is a possibility that we are going to get remakes. It truly is inevitable, and I always sort of knew that, but like, I don't know. I've been proven wrong so many times trying to keep my expectations leveled, but Shadow Generations just blew me away, you know? And I feel like now anything is possible. It's really exciting, you know, to think about the potential of what those remakes could do and what they could bring to the table and make a more concrete canon. You know, maybe all the remakes have the moon destroyed, you know what I mean? So all the games they remake, they can fix the moon and actually make it consistent with SA2. They could make the gameplay more consistent throughout all these remakes, you know, like what Mario does. Like, you know, from Mario 64 to Mario Odyssey, there's a noticeable evolution of one gameplay style with gimmicks added on that are different each time. I feel like Sonic should sort of go in that direction, because the more they try to make 30 different gameplay styles, it just, the fan base crumbles, and it's just so, there's so many different takes and so many different wants and desires from the fans that it just creates more division, and that's the last thing I think this fan base needs. So I think, you know, remaking 06, making it good and hold up to today's standards, I think would be an incredible thing for the franchise, and I think it would be historic if they were able to pull it off and actually make it one of the best Sonic games of all time. That would be a historic moment for gaming in general, and I think it would change everything. I've always sort of wondered why not, you know, because whenever I thought of an official Sonic 06 remake, it was way back when. I haven't thought about it in a long time, because again, it didn't seem like a possibility, especially with how well Project 06 succeeded, which I know it's not done yet, but how well it succeeded at remaking most of the game and making it a lot more fun than the original, in my personal opinion. I just was like, well, that's it. This is the closest thing I'm going to get to that, and I'm happy with Project 06 if we never get an 06 remake. But I now see that as like, well, an 06 remake would not be like Project 06. It would be a complete reimagining of the entire thing. And I'm starting to wonder, maybe that could be interesting. Looks like we might see Mephiles again after all, except it won't be in like a present time. It'll be a past story that already happened, but still, getting to see these games remade, which I'm pretty sure it's going to happen. I mean, now we have the original game director himself stating that he wants to do it, wishes he could do it. Kind of tells me that he can't, but he wishes he could. And I think honestly, that's probably all there is to this. I don't think this is some sort of secret confirmation or they're trying to hype people up, but I know that they know that there's fans of this game out there, and they wouldn't just say that if they weren't thinking about doing remakes, you know, because now they've talked about Adventure 1 and 2 remakes. They've talked about, well, leaked. They haven't talked about it, but a Heroes remake, and now an 06 remake. It's like, clearly there's remakes coming, and I don't know when, and I don't know how, and I don't know why, but they're happening. And it's a perfect time, because again, you know, a lot of new fans are coming into the franchise, and it's good that they're welcomed with these new reimagined versions of the games that we grew up with. You know, I think about it a lot, like Sonic Mega Collection, Sonic Gems Collection, Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, they're why I'm a Sonic fan. You know, everything else that came after was just the icing on the cake. But like, those are what got me interested. And you know, like, they still hold up in a lot of ways to this day and are still really fun games. And the speedrunning community is still going for all these games. And it's like, it would be such an amazing thing if they could just bring these stories back and make everything feel more consistent in the franchise and continuous. Like I was saying when I was talking about Shadow Generations in my previous video, the stories haven't felt continuous and like they were part of the same universe in a long time because of how different and wacky things have gotten and how many different art styles they've tried out. You know, it's just kind of been all over the place for the past 10 years. I feel like I've said for the past 10 years because of how much I've been talking about my disappointment, you know, basically post Generations. It's been like kind of mixed for me, and I've not really felt super good about a Sonic game probably until Frontiers. But even Frontiers, I was like, there's still something off about this that's not like satisfying my desires for a new next-gen Sonic game. And Shadow Generations comes along and satisfies a lot of those things too, but now I'm like, you know, what's the next step? You know, what's the next step forward? You know, the future's looking really exciting. It seems like anything is possible. Every time I think something isn't possible, it turns around and it is. Like Mephiles being in Shadow Generations at all. I thought that was just wishful thinking on my end, but turns out it was real. And so, yeah, have an open mind because we could be seeing some remakes in the next decade, you know, probably on and off for the next decade, just remake after remake. Hopefully alongside new titles, and this doesn't, you know, there's like a separate team doing remakes and they don't have to take too much of their time away. But I'm assuming that each of these teams are looking at what the other are doing. And so they pretty much confirmed this in one of the interviews that they learned a lot of lessons from Shadow Generations they're going to apply to their next titles. So that's really good to hear. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I do want to give just a really quick update on Sonic Cybernetics Episode 7 finale and let you know that it's still in pre-production, and that's because I've started up full production on Sonic Doomsday Reimagined Episode 0. So this is going to be a prequel for the reimagining of Doomsday, and yes, I'm also going to be doing a reimagining of Sonic Revolution. And the reason for this is because my standard of quality has heightened since the release of Sonic Doomsday and Revolution. They are very outdated in their presentation overall, so I'd be rewriting a lot of the script, I'd be redoing a lot of the voice lines, all of the animation entirely would be redone. There's going to be some different music in there as well. It's going to just be a complete remake of the original 2 arcs. And I'm going to be slowly drip feeding these episodes out as I can. They're easier to make because they are based on something that is already like done. Like it's not the same as making something new, which requires a lot more time. So it has that on its side, but yeah, it's going to be something that throughout 2025 I'm working on, and 2026 probably as well. I'm going to be making a reveal video for Sonic Doomsday Reimagined, which will go into much more detail on what to expect for the animated series in general, but also the Reimagined series and why that's happening. But yeah, so I hope you look forward to that, and I look forward to the conversations we'll have in the comments. So thank you guys again, and I'll see you in the next video, creators. Peace out.